Hi and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave and this is episode 674 and today's date is May 22nd, 2015 and the title of this episode is FBI warns of a major cyber attack on the U.S. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. The interview with Alistair McLeod is now up on the X22 Report Spotlight channel. That is a separate channel from the X22 Report. So you need to go onto YouTube, type in X22 Report Spotlight, and that will bring you to the new channel. Or you can come to the X22Report.com site and you'll see the interview on the right-hand side and you can watch it there. Or click on the title on the right-hand side and it will bring you right to the YouTube channel of X22 Report Spotlight. And if you're on the email alert system, you will get emailed when a new interview does come out. Let's get right into the economic collapse news. Now, out in Greece, we understand that they have more payments to make and they just don't have the funds to make them come June 5th. And we're seeing that Greece right now, they are saying they are very, very close to making a deal. Now, of course, this deal does not include a compromise on labor, a compromise on pensions, but they're saying they're very close to this deal. But when we look at this, this is what the ECB and the IMF want. They want them to make a deal on basically austerity. And Greece is saying, no, we can make a deal, but it's everything but that. And we're going to have to watch this situation and see how this turns out. And in addition to all of this, we have a German finance minister. He's conceded the possibility that Greece may need a parallel currency alongside the euro if the country talks with the creditors fail. And maybe this is why they have the drachma already printed and, already designed and ready to go. Because we can see at this point in time, the government was elected because the people did not want more austerity. And if the government gives in to the demands of the ECB and the IMF, the people are going to be very, very angry. And we're going to have to see what type of deal they come out with, because they're saying in the next 10 days, there is going to be some type of deal. Now, is there definitely going to be a deal? We don't know. They're giving us a lot of lip service at this point in time. We know Greece is broke. They don't have the ability to raise the revenue. And they're kind of stuck in this situation at this point in time. And when we look at this, we see that Greece owes about $312 billion. Greece will need another 42 years to pay back what it owes to its lenders, provided that there's no new debt and there is no added interest. And we can see right now they are really in a tight bind, because what they're going to get if they do make a deal is more debt. Period. That's it. They're not going to see economic growth whatsoever. The central banking system does not know how to produce economic growth. All they know how to do is continually put countries into debt, rob them of their natural resources, and give them more debt. That's it. Period. The end. We see out in the Eurozone, we understand that things are completely falling apart. Countries are having a very tough time making it through. And we see the Eurozone consumer confidence now has deteriorated for a second straight month in May. And it's faster than expected. The flash consumer confidence index dropped to negative 5.5 from negative 4.6 in April. And we understand the corporate media, the central banks, the governments are out there trying to convince us that the Eurozone looks like it's picking up once again, but it is below the 2008 recession levels still. So there is no improvement whatsoever. Here in the United States, what are we seeing? Well, we're seeing core CPI rose about 0.3% month on month in April, the most since March 2006, and 1.8% year on year, the most since January of 2013. The biggest driver of the surge in consumer prices is Obamacare, medical care costs, which rose about 0.7%. This is the biggest increase since January of 2007. And what we're seeing right now, and I know the law is called the Affordable Care Act, and of course Congress couldn't read any of it before they voted on it, but they voted on it anyhow. This Obamacare, Affordable Care Act law that's in effect right now does not benefit the people. Basically, there's no competition between the insurance companies. They're all together on this, and they can raise rates whenever they want. And plus, nothing has really changed with Obamacare. The only thing that's changed is they give subsidies. Everybody else is still paying the same or a lot more. And if they don't want it, they're penalized. And the policies are so expensive that there's deductibles that are in the thousands, and you never even access the policies. And we see the rates are continually moving up. According to the Wall Street Journal, we see that there are key insurers in some states that are proposing hefty rate boosts to plans sold under the Affordable Care Act. In New Mexico, market leader Healthcare Services Corp is asking for an average jump of 51.6% in 2016. In Tennessee, the biggest insurer, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee, has requested an average of 36.3% increase. In Maryland, Care First Blue Cross Blue Shield wants to raise rates 30.4%. In Oregon, the largest insurer, Moda Health, 25% increase. All of them cite high medical costs incurred by people newly enrolled under the Affordable Care Act. This whole thing is a complete disaster. It does not benefit the people. And what's going to happen as this goes on and the costs continually rise, it will continually bump more and more people out of the area of getting these plans. It'll be completely impossible. And most of the people will not be able to pay for it. A lot of people who've joined up said, yes, I need medical insurance, but then they get the first bill and they're like, whoa, how much is this? And they're shocked. And maybe they make the first, maybe they make the second. But as time goes on, they have a tougher and tougher time making the payments. We see corporations right now, their revenue, their earnings are absolutely awful. Hewlett-Packard is reporting the worst revenue since July of 2007. We see there are more layoffs coming in major corporations, in retail. We see Extreme Networks, 285 people. Murray Energy Corp, 1,800. Leahy Health, 130. Health Plus of Michigan, 500. Hartford Financial Services Group, 190. NetApp, 200. Frank's International, 150. Allscripts, 250. There are layoffs after layoffs after layoffs, and we're going to see more. We're probably going to see additional layoffs in HP as they restructure. We're seeing it all over the place. But again, the United States government doesn't report it because they kind of got rid of that department, that section that reports layoffs back in 2013. We understand college graduates. They can't find work. And right now, if you're looking for work and you went to college, you're looking at low wages. I mean, if we look at the stats right now from 1979, 23.9% of low-wage workers in 1979 had some college experience or a college degree. That same group has grown to 44.2% in 2013. Almost half of U.S. graduates can't do any better than a low-wage job, period. And we're seeing this. And the government actually proves that those youths that are coming out of college, they cannot find full-time work. Moody's has warned that the proliferation of $0 income-based repayment plans threatens to plunge billions in student loan-backed ABS into default, and based on the following official Department of Education letter that was sent to students coming off the 6-month post-graduation grace period, because when you graduate they give you 6 months to find a job, and if basically you don't find a job, you're going to have to start paying back your student loan. And we can see from the letter they received, what they're doing is they're basing their repayments on the amount of money they bring in. And here's the letter. As you consider these options, the U.S. Department of Education wants to remind you that you may qualify for a repayment plan that calculates your monthly payment based on your income. You will likely qualify for an income-driven repayment plan if your total federal student loan debt exceeds your annual income. Under an income-driven plan, your initial payment could be as low as $0 per month. They need to do this because most of the graduates right now are having a very rough time finding work. They're having a very rough time finding that high-paying job where they can make the payments. A lot of people are getting part-time work. A lot of people are getting part-time work, living with their parents, and still having a tough time paying for their $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $80,000 worth of loans. And this does not help the economy whatsoever. It drags the economy down because they can't go out and spend. They can't buy the products in retail. They can't save their money for a home. And we're starting to see that this is really affecting the next generation. We're seeing it in other countries like Greece, Cyprus, Portugal, Spain, France, UK, Germany. The next generation is having a very rough time, and it's not contributing to the economy where it will make it better in the long run. It's actually having the opposite effect. We see manufacturing here in the United States continually falling apart. The Baltic Dry Index, it was pushed up to about 640 points by the increase in capsize rates. And we see the Baltic Dry Index dropping. It's down to 586, down 6 points once again. This tells us that manufacturing is going absolutely nowhere, dead in the water. And the United States, well, basically the world, has so much debt it cannot be repaid. If you took every single penny away from everyone in the United States, it would still not be enough to pay off the national debt. Today, the debt of the federal government exceeds $145,000 per household, and it's getting worse every single year. Think about when Obama came into office, and that's not just Obama, but we're seeing an acceleration of the debt. When he came into office, it was like $9 trillion. When he leaves office, it's going to be in excess of $20 trillion. This cannot be sustained. We have proof that it cannot be sustained. Look at Greece. Yes, the Fed, the central bank, can continually create money, but it doesn't go to the people. It goes to the federal government so they can loan money to other countries or give aid to other countries, where they can also create more programs, give more of the money to the industrial war complex, and that just continually raises the debt. If the interest rates go up, we're doomed. And this is why they're keeping it low. They're having a tough time raising it, and if they do, the entire system will collapse. Richard Nephew, who worked for the State Department during the Obama administration, said that sanctions are really not having the same effect that they had in the past. I mean, he helped coordinate sanctions policies against Syria, Russia, and right now he's saying with the Chinese-led Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank is a clear example of the dwindling U.S. economic influence. And they're saying that eventually what's going to happen, the sanctions are going to be absolutely meaningless. So Obama was kind of correct when he came out and said, listen, we tried sanctions on Cuba for 50 years. They just don't work. But of course they're applying them to Russia, Syria, Iran, North Korea, Venezuela, even though he tells us that they don't work. And we can see as time goes on, they will have less and less of an effect. And once that occurs, what is the U.S. going to do against these other countries? Well, basically they'll turn to war. That's what they'll end up doing. We see Russia has increased its gold reserves once again by another 300,000 troy ounces in April. It brought their total gold reserves that are reported to 40 million troy ounces. We see that NATO, EU, and the US could be thinking about trying to break up the BRIC system into national parts. NATO, EU, and other international structures like the US in the future are going to try to break the BRIC system into many different parts. They're going to put a wedge in there and try to break the countries off. I don't think this is going to work. I think they're going to try everything they possibly can to break up the system because it threatens the EU, it threatens the United States. We see Japan is out there. They have announced a $110 billion new challenger to the AIIB bank. So they're trying to push. Will this work? No, because look how much debt. Look at Japan's economy. It's a complete disaster. Just like the United States. We see the NSA has been spying on all Americans, and we knew this for a very long time. And what they were trying to do is they wanted to hack into smartphones via Google and Samsung app stores and infect the phones with malware and spyware. The revelations came from the top secret documents from Edward Snowden. The surveillance project wanted to implement a spying system called X-Keyscore, which would be able to identify smartphone traffic flowing across internet cables and then track down smartphone connections to the app servers. The aim was then to infect every app listed in the store with malware in a project codenamed Irritant Horn. Users of the Google Play Store and Samsung App Store would then download the infected app, thus making it easier for the NSA to spy on every single person who had the Android phone. And we could see all this spying is absolutely meaningless. The FBI, because as we know, the Patriot Act expires June 1st. FBI is out there, and they can't point to any major terrorism cases that they have cracked thanks to spying on every single person here in the United States. Inspector General Michael E. Howitzer said that between 2004 and 2009, the FBI tripled its use of bulk collection under Section 215 of the Patriot Act, which completely violates the Fourth Amendment. And basically what they've come up with, nothing. They couldn't link any terrorism to any people. They didn't stop any terrorism. They did absolutely nothing. You know why? Because 99.999% of the terrorism is coming from our government agencies. CIA, small little groups that are pushing different agendas. The American people, they're not pushing terrorism. They want to live free. I know I do. I have children. I want them to grow up in a democracy. I want them to grow up and have the ability to make an income. I want them to have the ability to do what they want to do, free of the government telling them what to do. I don't need them to be in debt. I don't need them to struggle to find jobs. I don't need the government to come down and place more and more rules on them. I think every single person just wants to live their life, make an income, support their family, go on vacations in peace. And this is why they have not found anything. And while they're doing this, they're violating the Fourth Amendment. We see the United States government, they are going to create a missile that can fly anywhere in the world. It will be a hypersonic missile that theoretically can reach any target in the world within an hour. Raytheon just received a contract for $20 million to develop this. And this will change war once again, because we know Russia, China, and the other nations, they are developing hypersonic missiles. And they will be able to do the same thing. And think about this. These war hawks, these people who want to go to war, reduce the population. The United States is not isolated anymore. Ballistic missiles, these new hypersonic missiles, which takes an hour to reach its target. the world now is open to full-out war. Very, very different than World War II. And when we go to war, it's with advanced actors. It's not with Yemen. It's not with Iraq. It's not with Nigeria. It's with advanced actors who have equal or better equipment than the United States. And we do not want to go to war, especially for the central bankers, especially for the elite that want this so bad. Right now, President Obama has announced yesterday his intention to designate Tunisia as a major non-NATO ally. The upgraded status will put the level of strategic cooperation between Washington and the North African nation on par with U.S. allies like Israel and Japan. Currently, there's only 4 other Arab nations that have the high-level designation, and that's Bahrain, Kuwait, Morocco, and Jordan. And if you look on a map, you see that Tunisia is right next to Libya. How convenient. Tunisia is also going to receive UH-60M Black Hawk helicopters to help with regional threats, counterterrorism, going into Libya, and they're also going to receive $30 million in foreign military financing. And this is a 50% increase compared to 2014. Japan right now is holding trilateral talks with South Korea on the issues of North Korea. And they're going to have in-depth consultations on various ways in dealing with North Korea. So the United States, Japan, and South Korea are getting together, and they're going to talk about their next steps to battle North Korea. We see the United States is continually provoking China in the Spratly Island area. And they sent in U.S. surveillance aircraft. And right now, U.S. warns the next step could be to test Beijing's territorial claims. The United States does not recognize the claims of the islands to China. And they're not abiding by it. They're provoking them. Actually, the United States has no claims in that entire area. I don't even know why the United States is there, except to provoke China. And they're there, and they're thinking about bringing in military assets, pushing the envelope to see how far they can push China. And we're going to have to watch that situation very closely. We see the EU and Ukraine, they've made a deal to agree on $2 billion loan to help the struggling country of Ukraine. So we have the IMF in there, loaning them money. The EU is loaning the money. The United States is loaning the money, putting this country further and further into debt. They have no manufacturing. The southeastern portion is the manufacturing hub. They lost the port to the Black Sea. That is Crimea. And I can't believe at this point in time that these central bankers are satisfied with just the West in Ukraine. It makes no sense. Because if they're giving up and they don't care anymore, remove the troops, remove the training, stop loaning Ukraine more and more money, and just let them go off and be on their own. But it seems that the United States, the EU, NATO, they can't. They're continually pushing this because they didn't get what they paid for. We see there's a lot of international investors now suing Ukraine for about $8 billion because of what's going on inside the country, how everything is completely falling apart. The value of their currency is dropping. And Russia is warning with this new bill where they do not have to pay dishonest creditors. Russia's saying, listen, if you move forward with this, we will call in our $3 billion. And we can see at this point right now that Ukraine is doing this on purpose to provoke Russia into doing something. Now, out in the Middle East, we see things are not improving whatsoever. We see that Saudi Arabia is continually bombing Yemen. We understand they're going to have some talks in Geneva, and they might stop the bombing for the talks. We'll have to see how that goes. The Yemeni army right now has taken over a Saudi Arabia's military site. They won the battle there, thrown the Saudis out. We also have a Yemeni group who hacked 3,000 Saudi government computers to reveal top secret docs. And they're claiming that they have the addresses, phone numbers, emails of these Saudi diplomats. They have secret agents, army personnel, and they have other classified information going all the way back to 1980. And they're saying a lot of this is going to shed light on what's really going on in this area. How much do you want to bet that the U.S. ramps up what is going on in this area? Because they do not want that information getting out. We see a think tank officials who engineered the 2006 U.S. surge in Iraq. They're saying, guess what? At this point in time, the aerial bombardment in Iraq and Syria is not enough. You need to bring in U.S. ground troops to the region. Air power will not defeat the Islamic State. You can see what they're building up to at this point in time. They're getting ready to send in the ground troops. They have to make the case. The American people, they are not behind this whatsoever. They want no ground troops. But you know eventually, to capture these regions and take control, they're going to have to do this. We see that the Islamic State right now has half of Syria. And the U.S. is looking at the situation, because it is their proxy army, and they're looking at this saying, listen, we need to pass the authorization for war because the Islamic State has half of Syria. I mean, we can see, why is this all happening? Because they're showing the Islamic State, which is a terrorist group. No, it isn't. It's a proxy army for the United States. But they're trying to make everyone believe that it is a terrorist group. That they made so many gains, that they're in a city now, an ancient city with artifacts, and it's time to pass the authorization for war to bring in the main forces. They're trying to make their case. They're showing that the Islamic State cannot be stopped. And they already have the think tank working on this, making the case to Congress that, yes, we need the ground troops to take control of the situation. We see the FBI director right now. He says the Islamic State is waking up to the idea of using sophisticated malware to cyber attack critical infrastructure in the U.S. This is coming from FBI Director James Comey. Logic tells me it's coming, and that the terror group is looking into whether it is capable of pulling off such attacks. Destructive malware is a bomb, and terrorists want bombs, Comey said. And while it may be difficult for a terrorist to physically enter the U.S., they can do this with a cyber attack. Remember what they were talking about with cyber attacks. If the United States is cyber attacked, they can use real weapons against these people. They will use this to say, we need to go get the Islamic State. And since they brought down the defenses, it was open season for Russia, for China, for North Korea. Comey says it's difficult, and it's a struggle of curbing the influence of the Islamic State on the internet, calling social media the intersection where cyber and counterterrorism merge. If you notice, what they're doing is they're building up a case where, get ready for a cyber attack, and we're going to have to shut down the internet because this is where it's all coming from. Of course, they have no proof whatsoever. They have no real information. They really don't see any of this really happening. Most of the cases where the Islamic State is here in the United States, they are patsies, and the FBI actually created the situations for these people. Most of the people had no idea what was going on. The FBI is also seeing an increase in the encryption. Remember, the FBI does not want encryption because they can't spy on the American people. And again, I see encryption just like a safe. Would you leave your doors open to your home? No, you wouldn't. Why wouldn't you let the FBI just walk through your home and look through all your stuff? It's the same with encryption. It's your private information. There is no reason for them to see your private information. And they're saying that the terrorists now are using encryption. Well, what happens if the terrorists didn't use the internet and they passed notes around and then burned them afterwards? How would the FBI figure out what to do? I mean, think about all of this. What they're saying is absolutely ridiculous. What they really want to do is they really want to spy on the American people. And they're saying that since they're all using encryption now, it hinders the reading of what they're trying to do and what they're trying to say. Well, let's see. There was no encryption because they had all the keys and methods in the past, and they didn't stop any terrorism whatsoever. There was no terrorism. This is a production to convince everyone that there are terrorists, that we should be afraid to give up our rights to privacy like encryption. We can see that they're pushing this forward and they're building and paving the way for a cyber attack because they're becoming desperate at this time. They need to push the authorization for war. They need to push the people into fear. They need people to give up their rights and say, listen, you're right, we can't use encryption. Everything needs to be open. You need to find these terrorists. But again, they never mention to anyone if there are terrorists here in the United States, wouldn't the best security to give everyone a weapon and protect themselves? Because the police, the armed forces, they can't be everywhere. So leave it up to the Americans. Let them fight the terrorists if there are any, which we know they're not. This is a complete inside job to convince you of what they want you to do. Because normally you wouldn't do something like this. You wouldn't give up your rights. And this is what they did back in 2001 with 9/11. And everything moving forward. They want more and more of your rights taken away. And they want you to give them away because they'll protect you. But they can't protect you. It's impossible for them to be everywhere. So if you believe their story, they can't be everywhere to protect you. They haven't picked up any type of terrorism chatter for years upon years on spying on every single person. They only use this to take away your rights and to make you do things you really don't want to do. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.